Trungwe Shalak Shijanai Nohadi Deacon Chiquinkosho Lida the Morris Thompson Center Trail Gates as Shija LaVerne Demientieff Dia Gehechat Masichonawichanithan. Good day, everyone. Welcome. We are here at the Morris Thompson Center with our friend LaVerne, and she's going to be speaking with us today on language journeys. We're very happy to have you here. Would you like to introduce yourself and share where you're from, your Deg Xinag introduction?
Hey, Dogetin Allen. Thank you for inviting me. Haleg Se'ezret. So my name is LaVerne Demientieff. Degetanitlan. I am Degetan Athabaskan. Deloy Chet Histant. Actually, Deloy Chet Getringil Chagil Histant. So my parents are actually from Holy Cross in Anvik, Alaska. I grew up in Nenana and Anchorage and Fairbanks Thisto. So I live in Fairbanks currently. My parents are the late Rudy and Alice Demientieff, and I actually work at the University of Alaska Fairbanks in the social work program. And I have one son. His name is Kyrie. So excited to be here. Thank you. Dogetin. Ashrigadistan.
Greenzy. You mentioned your name was Haleg.
Yeah.
Am I saying that right?
Haleg.
Mm-hmm. And would you like to share the meaning behind the name and where you were named?
Yeah. Thank you for asking me that. So I started learning my language in my early 20s, and Jim Dementi, actually Beth Leonard, started teaching me. Her dad is Jim Dementi, and he's kind of been on this journey with me of my language learning. He recently passed, and I just want to acknowledge him for his efforts in the language revitalization process. I'm just really honored to have been able to learn from him. And about maybe, 5 or 6 years ago, we were doing a Where Are Your Keys workshop, and I was asking. I never grew up with the language in my home, so I didn't have a Deg Xinag name when I was growing up, and it's something I really wanted for myself. And my name is LaVerne. My mom named me LaVerne, and I knew that LaVerne in French meant spring. So I asked Jim what spring was in Deg Xinag, and he said Holer. And I asked him if I could have that as my name, my Deg Xinag name. And he said that would be fine. And I was talking with someone later on, and they said, if someone gives you something like that, make sure you do something in return, so that reciprocity, right? And so they said you could even give $1, but you could also just give them a gift or whatever to return that. And so I brought him and his wife, Jeanette, out to lunch. And of course, I always like to honor him anyway for all of his work. But yeah, he was the one that named me. It means springtime. And so I'm super, super proud of it. Something like naming is, I think, really profound to our identity and our sense of belonging and our wellness. And I have internalized and utilized the name Haleg up at UAF and in my classroom and with my family, and it's brought me a lot of just connection and belonging to who I am as a Degetan woman. So
that's beautiful. So you spent some time learning from Jim Dementi, but I've heard you mention other elders as well when you were starting out, and some of the things they shared with you, and they were very impressed and also just happy to hear you learning and speaking.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. My parents went through the Holy Cross mission, and so even prior to them doing that, their parents lost their language through colonization. And I really, when I started in my early 20s, wanted to start learning more about who I was as a Degetan woman and where my people come from and about our land. And it was, interestingly enough, there was a Deg Xinag class at UAF in the late 90s. And Beth Leonard was teaching it along with Alice Taff. And they brought in like 6 or 7 elders from the region. Louise Winkleman and Edna Deacon and Jim Dementi and Hannah Millell and amazing people. And one of the things that we did in that first class was we cooked moose soup together. We took walks along, around the UAF, and we would just spend time together, and so get to know each other. And one of the things that really connected me to the language at that time was the love that the elders displayed for me as I was teaching, or as I was learning, as they were teaching. And they would share, like, with me, I'm so proud of you. It's so good to hear you speak. When I hear you speak, it sounds so good. It's in your blood. And those kinds of things, I had never experienced before, the amount of caring and love in that language process. And not only that, my parents lost their parents, so my grandparents, when they were very little. I didn't get to know them. But these elders knew them, so they would tell me stories. During my learning process, and about my grandfather and about who he was as a person. And I was just so amazed by that, because my mom wasn't able to really share those things with me. And so to learn, that everybody played cards at his house on Friday night or whatever, that he lived on Reindeer Lake, he had a cabin, and so on and so forth. It was just connecting for me. It helped me connect back. I had not grown up in Holy Cross or Anvik. Although I've been back numerous times as a kid. We had a fish camp right below Anvik in Peter Hamilton Slough. But I grew up in Nenana, so I'm always grateful for the Nenana, Tanana Athabascan people of Nenana, because they influenced me during some very formative years of my life. And then we moved to Anchorage because my mom had to be close to the hospital. So to be able to connect back to who I am as a Degaton person is just so profound, and it's really changed my life. And so 20 years later, I'm still doing language work. And, we recently went to Shagaluk a couple years ago and did some language activities with the kiddos and with the community. And, when I heard the children speaking the language, it's super emotional. It was so beautiful for me. I was so in awe, and oh my gosh, they sound so good. So it was like full circle for me, remembering the elders would tell me that, oh, you sound so good. I'm so, proud of you, and I'm so happy for you. And to be able to just kind of really feel what they're feeling. And again, I just have to give gratitude to our ancestors and elders who carried this language across some really, terrible times, some really challenging times through colonization, assimilation, and boarding schools and these things, right? Because they carried this, they kept it safe, they kept practicing it, and then many of them, like Jim Dementi and Edna Deacon, continuously teach it. And so they've because they were able to carry it. One of the things that I get to benefit from it today, my well-being, my identity, my sense of belonging, sense of connectedness, I get to benefit from it, and I want that for others. I want that for future generations, and so. Hopefully, as I continue to learn, I can just continue to share, and that will just continue to go forward. And so people, 100 years from now can be like, I can benefit from this.
Dogedan, yeah, it's beautiful. I've always been impressed with just how strong the connection you feel to the language and the culture and learning, and also teaching. And I remember especially a visit we had to Holy Cross in 2017, I think, and that was just a beautiful time there in the midst of summer. It was during Dinakanaga, right. And there were many elders there, and just visiting the community. And I can just picture still seeing you in the community and just connecting with the language and the memories there, and just really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So at that time you were a Doyan Foundation board member and also serving as the language chair. And we spent a lot of time working together, including on the Doyan Languages online project. And would you like to talk about that experience of building those language lessons and units and videos and all the pieces of that course? It's about to be published. It's very close, so we're very happy about that and all the contributions you made to that.
So excited for that. You know, it was such a wonderful experience to begin to work with the team to create those lessons. Alice Taff and George Hawley and Beth Leonard and Jeanette Dementi and Jim Dementi and Edna Deacon and Melinda Chase, and just really coming together, and so much. One of the things that I realized is that whenever we would come together for like a couple of weekends, sometimes at a time, and I would get immersed in that weekend, and we'd talk a lot in the language, and then afterwards I would dream in the language. And I never have ever done that. And that was like, wow, and then my language skills would improve so much from just 2 or 3 days with the elders, talking with them. So that was a really profound experience. The other piece of coming together with a group of people to do language work is, especially with elders, as we got more conversational with the elders, I could tell it was such a joy for them to hear, us talk to them in the language, or ask them questions, or ask them if they need anything or want a cup of coffee in the language. And so I'm just so grateful for that. I'm grateful I had that experience, and I want to continue having that experience. Doyan Languages Online was such a fun project, and we did so many fun things. And I hope that you get a chance to really, those that are listening, get a chance to really explore that. George Hawley he's created a lot of songs, and so he's in there singing a lot. Mm-hmm. I have some small activities that I put together around like how's the weather and how are you doing, and various other things that you can listen to, and the software, all of that you guys did, but we gave you what we thought the lessons could look like, and I'm just really grateful for that experience. I feel like it has changed me, and really kind of really influenced and made it so that I was not that I worked on the language often, and so I'm just really proud of it. I'm really excited for it, and I think people will really have fun with it. So
excellent. Yeah, I was just observing the Deg Xinag team and just how much love and creativity and all the elements that they were pulling together for the course, and I was just very grateful for everything that people were doing with that.
Laughter.
And, and Jim and Edna just sharing their knowledge, and everyone putting their best effort forth, and also incorporating children's voices. Yeah. There were some young learners in Shagaluk who are able to contribute to the course as well, and so to capture those voices, and I'm just so looking forward to having that course published finally. It's been a long journey. We've had this epidemic in the midst of it, or the pandemic, and it's just had an impact on our language, and losing Jim, that's one of the most profound things, just in the whole process. You don't expect all of this when you start out, and it's just so much went into it, so I'm looking forward to it being shared. And in addition to the Doyan Languages Online, you've been leading the Deg Xinag Learners Group, and I've also been impressed there too. It's been meeting how many years now? Just weekly, and
surprisingly, we started. When it was the decade of the no, it was the year of the Indigenous language.
Yeah, 2019.
Yeah, in 2019. Right before that, I made a commitment that I wanted to do language as much as I could every week. And so I think around that time is when we started creating the Deg Xinag Language Learners Circle. And yes, it's been going every week since then. There might have been like a few weeks that we canceled for whatever reason, but pretty much we're going, whether we have just 2 people online talking to each other or 10. And sometimes it's 2 and sometimes it's 10, depending on, we try to change the times around a little bit. But I feel like that's also really been so profound. A number of reasons for me. My niece and my nephew have been really active in the group, and as well as other young adults from our community. And it's inspiring because young people are interested and wanting to engage, because when you engage in learning language, you're not only just learning the language, you're learning about who you are, right? You're learning about culture, you're learning about your history, you're learning about the land. I mean, you're learning about our worldview. You take something like, thinking about relationality and relationships. Language incorporates all of that. So the young people just get connected right in, and they, even if they don't come every week, I see them. I also have a Deg Xinag Facebook page, and so I see them posting things and sometimes doing things like my niece, for example, is graduating with her Bachelor's of Fine Arts this semester, and she created all of her art in her art exhibition around this Deg Xinag language revitalization. So profound and so impactful in so many ways. So I'm just really. I hope that it, keeps going on, and we keep connecting, and keep practicing and keep talking. And I always tell people, the language has a lot of love in it, and it has a lot of relationships in it. I mean, you look at words like avasogolok and, my dear grandfather, for spider. That's the name for spider, right? My dear grandfather. Yachitsi is also our grandfather, right? You take a look like animals like the brown bear, Gaga, older brother. There's stories. You look at some of the language in our online dictionary explores concepts like when the raven flips upside down, right? They're dropping a pack sack of luck onto you. These are things I think that connect us and build that relationship to nature and the land and spirit and to each other. And it's such a beautiful thing. And so I hope that, and it's so fun because we get to explore this stuff and talk about, this is so interesting how this word was created, and talking about, what that means for who we are as a people. And then to see my niece's art reflect some of that too is just really profound.
Yeah, I was fortunately, to be able to visit the exhibition up at the university, and it is really just beautiful artwork, and then the language incorporated, and there's stories that just emerge from the culture and language that's just represented there in the artwork, and just beautiful stuff that Rebecca has been making, and I just love to see that. And I think you mentioned that I've also heard you talking a lot about health and wellness and the connections with language, and I don't know, would you like to elaborate or share more about that topic, that area, how you see it?
Yeah. Well, so I just mentioned our language has so much love and connection, right? And a relationship and worldview. And I think we also have to acknowledge in the last couple hundred years, right, due to colonization and the forced, taking of our languages in a sense, right, that there's also trauma attached to sometimes the language. And so, and sometimes that comes out in just, a fear of speaking it or not speaking it right. it could be even a fear of like wanting to enter into a language, just thinking, some of that is just our ancestral memory of being hurt when we spoke. And because of that, I think we have to, whenever we have like teaching the language classes and the courses and talking with each other in the language, it's important to remember that experience that our ancestors and our parents have had, and find and cultivate, nurture that compassion for each other as we go through the language learning process. So I always like to just build in a lot of love into this space, because, and just embracing. And then that's just something I learned from the elders. That's what they did for me. They showed me a lot of love. And I think that's what creates safety. And that is what makes it okay to make mistakes. And I always say, if you can't come to a class, it's okay. Like if you can only come once a month or maybe a couple times, a year, great. If you, want to just listen and not speak, that's okay. If you want to try words, if you want to ask questions, like anything is okay. Anything is fine. And it's really just about creating this space to feel safe, to get connected, so that we can actually begin to practice speaking in the language more often. Because that's when we're going to start getting more comfortable and trying, is when we feel safe and when we feel like it's okay to make mistakes. I was like, when we were doing Where Are Your Keys, I know it was so fun to watch, like Dewey Hoffman, right? And whenever he talked about making mistakes, he would say "Huzoon" and just be like, yeah, it's okay. Like, we can celebrate mistakes because it's a part of learning. And anyway, I love that. And so I guess that's what I would say about trauma and wellness.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to look at it, that I think anyone who has begun to learn their ancestral language just begins to uncover all of these hidden hurts that, have been there, on maybe not even realizing it. And then it comes out as you're learning, and then the language also can provide a place to heal some of those hurts that you didn't even realize were there. So I just really appreciate that. Is there anything else you would like to share with us today? I think what you're working on recently, or towards the future.
One of the things I've been thinking about a lot is the Dene languages, the connection, right? Because Deg Xinag has only a handful of speakers, fluent speakers left, less than a handful. And while there's an inspiring amount of people learning, like there's a resurgence and a revitalization, and young people are inspired, and they're using the language in their art, in their everyday lives, in their songs. One of the things that sometimes, if we're a room of learners without an elder in it, it's hard to come up with trying to think of the word for something, or trying to think of how this might change depending, right, in different contexts. And so we have an online dictionary that helps us. We have stories from the elders that help us. But what I realize is that there are many groups, Dene groups. I've actually started going to or I've asked Susan Pascavan for support in thinking about a word, because Koyakan is, many things are connected, right? So there's a lot of similar types of words. And so I was like, oh boy, I could actually get help from other Athabascan languages to try to figure out our language. And so I'm super excited just to continue to work with, others in Atna region and Gwich'in and, even Navajo and Apache, because they're all part of the Dene languages, right? And so we can all support each other to continue to grow our dictionaries, our vocabulary, our learning about things that, you know, maybe gaps in our specific areas. So I'm like, that's so exciting to me, and I want to do that more. So I'm looking for opportunities and ways to do that. I think there might be a Dene language conference in Soldotna next year, but that because of COVID again, I think that's been pushed back. But if that happens, I'm like so excited to go there.
Yeah, that's beautiful. The Athabascan languages, there are about 47 of them. And here in Alaska, we have, I think, 12, and 12 or 11. But when you look at the languages, sometimes there's a sharp line between them on the map, that language map. But really, it's a blurry line. And you scratch the surface, and these languages all have much more in common with each other than not. You know, they're all part of the same family. I like what Dewey Kahlia also said was, we're one people with many languages.
I love that.
One people, many languages. So it's beautiful. Yeah. So Dogaden, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Ashugadistan, really grateful.
Ashugadistan.
Grateful to be here. Thanks, everybody.
Quincy at Oti. Take care.